This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me, I bet you wish you was me, I know this that I know. For the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, I know it, I know.
All right, everyone, welcome back. This is the Solve For Why Vlogcast, episode number 13. We're back after a long week of work. We're working out there, Berkey.
War.
It is war out there. Of course, it is myself, Christian Soto, a.k.a. Chinayam, a.k.a. I don't know. That's my only a.k.a. And then it is, of course, Matt Berkey, the man with all the nicknames. Berkey 11, Alpha Reg Berkey, Big Bet Berkey. It was almost Bracelet Berkey.
It wasn't that close.
You made a lot of final tables this summer.
I made two.
That's a lot.
I want a small one.
You
A
want
small side event.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I didn't win shit. So
You didn't play?
yeah, well, I'm just out here. I'm out on the streets.
I
bro.
made back-to-back final tables. We had an auto swap on if you played. You got nothing.
Well, I went to the Bellagio and won money, so like it's fine. It's okay. Like there's enough for everybody. Right? That's the key. The key is to make sure that there's enough money in the ecosystem, that there's enough for everybody, and that's what we're gonna talk about today.
Sure.
All right, let's get into our first topic. It was pretty much the story of the week, kind of, right? Like it's one of those stories that like it gets out and then it just catches like a little bit of fire, right? So the situation was regarding I would say let's call it the GG scandal for now,
Sure.
right? So this gentleman, he plays on GG, he deposits. We'll give the backstory, but effectively he gets banned from GG and funds confiscated, $180,000.
Okay.
Right. The initial statement is they just ban him and they don't really give him an explanation. We just have to assume that what he says, right? So what he says is that initially he, like years ago, he played on a different skin of GG, right? And he got banned from that skin. Later, now he sees that GG's a thing. It's a popular name. He says, oh, I want to play. So he deposits. They ask him for all the documentation. He sends it. He plays, pays a bunch of rake, loses, redeposits, runs it up. And then GG changes their policy and says, we need to use real names for high stakes. And he's like, okay, sure. I've already sent my documentation. I'll redo it again. Does it again. His account gets closed. And then they say, we're not paying you out. And then they negotiate a little bit. And then they say, we'll give you your initial deposit back. And we're keeping the rest of it.
Yeah.
The poker Twitters start going crazy. You know how poker Twitter is. They don't fuck around.
I've seen it a time or two.
Yeah. I feel like you're kind of like the leader of poker Twitter.
No.
You're top 5.
don't
You're
think
like part of the council. Bro, it's like Berkey, Matt Glantz. Who else is in there?
Galfond.
Galfon's in the council.
Ingram.
Joe Ingram's like the leader of the fucking council. Joe Ingram is like chairman.
Yeah.
Chairman of the council. And then who else is in there? There has to be one more. There's 5 people in the council.
I don't know, man.
I feel like
don't
there's
know.
a secret advisor. Like Rachel List is the advisor. Like she's like the 5th chair, like just sitting in the background, just like I have something to say. Okay, so the council starts taking a look at it, and they let the people look at it first. The people are like, "What the hell's going on?" GG's stealing. GG is like, they let people run up stacks and then confiscate it. How are you gonna let someone pay a bunch of rake and then like take all their money, all this stuff? Initially, I was on that side. I was like, well, like, how are you gonna let the kid play and then just like take all his money? Like, that seems kind of fucked up. Whatever. I don't know. So, what are your initial thoughts on it? Like, given the whole like from the beginning first to the.
Well, I think the biggest thing is that we don't know why he was banned to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I think it matters to the degree at which he was violating TOS at that point.
Yeah,
you know, was this a bum hunting thing? Was this a cheating thing? Was this an RTA thing?
Yeah.
Was it a VPN thing? Because like there's massive degrees here that are more or less egregious depending upon where he falls on that spectrum. So I think that matters a ton.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, giving him the benefit of the doubt that he was negligent and didn't realize that they were affiliated sites is fine. But at the same time, it's like we don't have to give him the benefit of the doubt. Like
Right.
GG certainly doesn't have to give him the benefit of the doubt.
I think the skin game is a little bit weird. Like I could see people saying, okay, I could see a recreational player saying like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But like this guy's playing like pretty high stakes. Like,
Yeah, he's playing nosebleed. It's pretty tough not to know that they're affiliate site.
Right. It seems like, I don't know, maybe. I don't know. Although
It's naive.
Personally, I don't know any of the other GGs. Like I know
You're not even playing on one GG skin, let alone the other ones.
Right. But like I would think like, okay, black chip poker is part of ACR. Like I kind of know that. I know True Poker is part of ACR. Like I know that it's all like the WPN network, right? Okay, so let's play the hypothetical game, right?
Sure.
He is banned for VPN.
Okay.
Now what?
Now I think that it's unfair that they don't pay him out. I think that, you know, they should have flagged his account. They should have given him a stern warning and said, look, you've already been banned from one of our skins. You're not permitted to play here because you violated TOS for this minor infraction. Take your money and get out.
Do you think PokerStars should have done that with Gordon Vail?
No, because it's different. PokerStar, well, maybe I'm making a case against my own argument here. But PokerStars was hypercritical of VPN accounts because they're a regulated site in Jersey and they're attempting to get regulated elsewhere in America.
Right.
To my knowledge, GG's not.
Yeah.
But with the current ties with WSOP and the potential opportunity to have an opening in the landscape in Nevada and New Jersey, maybe they are, and maybe now that is a bigger infraction. The fact that they let him play for so long, if it were a VPN infraction, I think constitutes them just paying him out. And I kind of feel that way about Stars too, in the sense that like they probably let Veo play forever, until we finally won,
right?
And they were just like ping, you know.
I think that's the like what's happening a lot. Like a lot of people are like, okay, why are you just like waiting?
But Veo would have gotten paid out if he didn't take it to court.
Is that what you think?
That's what I know. The only people from my knowledge, and I could be wrong on this, maybe I'm not quite doubted enough, but I know enough people who got pinged for VPNing. The only people who didn't get paid, to my knowledge, is Schindler and Veo, because they made a public stink about it, where they tried to deny until they could die publicly, and Stars just like
They're like, no,
put him to the test. Everybody else just had to wait a really long time. Where Stars was basically saying like, we're not giving you your money, we're not giving you your money, we're not giving you your money, we're gonna donate it to charity, and then like 18 months later, they're just like, all right, like make this go away, take your money, you're never allowed on the site again, you're banned for life.
Yeah,
but here you go.
Yeah. Yeah. So they try to make like examples out of like Veo and Schindler then.
I think that their hand was forced.
Yeah. Because
once
like,
it becomes public,
right? They can't like
now
go
they
back.
can't go back because they are a regulated site and they have to try to adhere to these laws.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Okay. Now let's play the game of he was bum hunting. Let's describe bum hunting. And what do you think bum hunting is?
So from my perspective, it would be utilizing unfair edges in order to win your unfair share of EV from losing players.
Yeah.
So that includes seat scripting. That includes basically
Seat
anything.
hopping.
Yeah, seat hopping, buttoning people. Basically anything that's going to give you some sort of EV advantage that isn't naturally fair to the game.
How about sit outs?
I mean, for me, like this is a bigger deal live than online, I think, because games will just break online, and you have a lot to choose from in most environments. But like live, this used to happen all the time when I was grinding Bellagio in like the mid 2000s. There'd be 2 games of 10-20. The main game would be amazing. The must move would be 6-handed, and 3 guys just wouldn't want to play short, so they would sit out, and then suddenly 2 of the other guys don't want to play 3-handed. So now the game goes down. But though
and they get on the list again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Though you were willing to battle,
Yeah.
you don't automatically become first on the list.
That sucks.
They had the option,
Right.
once it was 5-handed or less, they had the option to just sit out and maintain their position on the list. So it's like you have to, as an operator, do things to curb that type of behavior.
Yeah, it's like I'm willing to play. He's not willing to play. I should go first on the list.
100%. 100%.
Like,
It's not even close.
I hate when that happens.
It was brutal. It was like to the point where, I stopped. I would move down to 5-10 uncapped often when that scenario would arise. Like if I couldn't just be in the main game whenever I got there, I would just go elsewhere and play 5-10 uncapped because the game wasn't that much smaller and you didn't have to deal with the bullshit.
Yeah. So that's been one of the major topics. Like, did you get a chance to read Olivier Busquet's post? Yeah. So I actually messaged him and I said like, hey, read your post and I have some thoughts about it, or I want your thoughts about it, right? Because he gave all his thoughts, and then I said like, hey, like I've been in situations where I definitely haven't been like good for the game, you know, like, but it's not my normal state. Like I said, like if I'm like, what are your thoughts on like not like putting on the straddle, not like effectively like trying to keep the game as tame as possible when you're shot taking and things like that. And then he responded with, well, it's like he said everything you're doing is fine. Like it's what's happening is that it's more of a mindset rather than analyzing each individual situation. So like because I said I'm not a reg in the game. Like if I'm shot taking, I'm not a reg in the game. He's like, is the responsibility of the regs to maintain that like ecosystem, right? And then he's like, if it's clear you're shot taking, the regs know you're shot taking, right? It's like, it's not, if they're like forcing you to do things, like that's bad on them too, right? Because like you're there just like trying to like move up, and actually they should. I
understand though the perspective of the reg, like they don't want you there. You know, you're a net negative to the environment because you are kind of crippling what they're attempting to foster. So you're making it more difficult for them to foster that gambling environment and maintain the ecosystem. And then on top of that, you're just like a net neutral. So like you're really only just like reaping EV without risking much, right? Like this is
I'm definitely risking
personally, but not to the game environment, right? So this is like crazy to me. When I first started getting invited to the big game, I couldn't figure out why they would ever let me come back because I was fixed. The most they could ever get out of me was going to be 200,000, right? But like I might run it to the moon. And that seems like a huge risk reward from that. Now, obviously they kind of foreshadowed more than I could myself. I ended up coming up with 5 million. Yeah. So it's like, you know, if you actually do groom somebody to move into the next stakes and you think that they are going to be a good reg for the environment, they'll find the funding and they will become a little more comfortable. But like, you know, whenever these shit regs take a shot at 10-20 or like I've been playing a little bit of 50-100 here and there, and you could just see that there's like always 2 5-10 players in the game who sold 80% and have like a bullet and a half, and it's just like, oh man, I mean the most we can get out of these guys is 15K, and like they're playing so goddamn tight and so, you know, such a plus EV strategy in a loose environment that like they just stand to win money, and they're really, it's not like we don't have a list, right? You know, the only good thing is that they're taking up a seat from like a killer. Yeah, absolutely. And that's happened to me like a couple of times. I've learned. We're gonna get back to GG, by the way. Yeah, I've learned that it's one of those things that when he told me like it's more of a mindset, I kind of understood because it's like, okay, I know, like it's annoying, like so let's say I'm playing 10-20 or 5-10 or whatever. And I see someone that I know plays like 2-5. I know he's going to play tight, but at the end of the day, I know that long term, like we need people to move up. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's okay. Like he's going to play tight. I understand I'm going to exploit him in some ways and things like that. As long as he's not bad for the environment in like a really like cutthroat way, like I'm going to take that seat. Like that stuff doesn't even bother me as much as like short stacking. The minimum buy-ins on uncapped games have to change. There's nothing worse than somebody who's taking a shot for 40 bigs. No, you can't do that. Like, get the fuck out of here, man. We're sitting 500 blinds deep. Like, there are situations where Rex are cold calling 3 bets for like 30 blinds pre, and that's your stack. Like, I don't want you waking up with
Jacks.
nines or
Just
jacks
like two
there.
jacks,
Yeah.
like, oh, double up.
Yeah,
Like,
it's just like, go home, man.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, that's annoying.
Can't have this.
That's annoying. Okay. So let's assume that coming back to the bump hunting and things like that. So let's assume he was bump hunting. Let's assume he was like sitting out as soon as the VIP leaves.
Yep.
He was switching seats. He was scripting, buttoning, all the things that like people are saying like we don't want people doing this anymore. He gets banned initially on the first site. Comes back on this site, real names. Maybe he's not even doing it anymore. Not what?
Yeah, I mean, again, like, to me, this is an oversight on GG's behalf as much as it is him maybe trying to fly under the radar. So I would probably determine whether or not I was going to pay him out based on what his behavior had been since he came back. GG's not offering a probation period, but he kind of like by default got one. So I think it's worth them doing their due diligence and just analyzing his play and seeing if it's cannibalistic to the environment.
And then if it is not, would your stance be like, okay, let him play? Or would your stance be like, you're still banned, here's your money though?
I don't know the purpose behind their policy is the thing. So like for me, it would just be like, all right, well, fuck it, let him play. Like he's not doing anything wrong. He's clearly gotten more wise over the years. Like it's fine. But I don't know why they make the policies the way that they do. I don't know what the incentive is behind it. If it's literally to keep out winning players, then they don't really need much cause to banish him. So it's like, we can run through all these what if scenarios all day long, but at the end of the day, if they just don't want another winning player on their site, it's well within their rights to deny him service. And the fact that he already had a strike against him where he was already banned on a previous skin means that they don't have to pay him the money he wants.
All right, ban the fucking guy. What? All right, I want to move on from this topic, but I do have some closing thoughts. Fedor makes a statement, right? He's probably one of the more well-known guys on their site, right? Like, and also just like, I guess the most polished, I would say.
Sure.
Like, he makes a statement and Joey responds with like, that's not good enough. Joey Ingram responds with like, that's not good enough.
Yeah.
Then after that, we see a statement from like one of the top heads of GG saying effectively like, this isn't for pros. This site is not for pros.
Yeah.
Right. If you want to be a pro, like go somewhere else. That's a big statement from a pro site.
Yeah.
What do you think there?
I mean, indirectly, it's what Stars did, 6-7 years ago whenever they got rid of Supernova Elite. I just think that, in essence, there's less of a villain or there's less vilification taking place here because precedent had already been set with Stars. And GG is hosting the biggest tournament series going on right now. And on top of that, the games are really good. And though pros are being disincentivized, they were never incentivized to begin with. So they didn't have something taken away.
But don't you see, like right now what we're seeing is like these mega high stake games, right? Like 500,000, 2,000, right? And it's just like Schindler, Ike, Limitless, like Makita. And it's like, what do you mean this site's not for pros? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. But that's, when you get to those stakes, that's rare air. Right. And like, yeah, sure, pros are playing it, but it's just like all high stakes games. Pros just facilitate the action or I guess facilitate the.
You need pros.
Yeah, they necessitate the environment.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the games are running around a select group of people that are there for sport.
Exactly. Okay. I want to go back to the live environment maintenance, right? So I did make it. I've been playing a lot of 510 Bellagio and stuff like that. And we were playing and there was a straddle going, right? It was 510, right? The game was 510, but what the plate is just there for, because the gaming,
sure,
like gaming and regulation and things like that. But like what's really happening is like the people are running the game.
Yeah.
Right. What's that thing, like the asylum?
Don't let the inmates run the asylum.
Yeah. Like the inmates are running the asylum right now.
Yeah, sure.
This game is out of hand.
Yeah.
Right. So we're playing 5, 10, 20, 5, 10, 20, 40 sometimes. Everybody's like sneaking on the little yellows, a little bit of black, like whatever's in your pocket is coming on the table, right?
Sure.
Maybe you go to the cashier with a little 500, come back and like
Right.
Hit them with the whatever. And the dealer, you throw a little 5 and they go like this. Like, that's easy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's all good. Game's good, whatever. I see my man, his nickname, Facepalm, right? Comes in the game. It's like, yo, we're playing 5, 10, 20. Like, I'm thinking he's a reg, right? I'm like, okay, it's chill. Like, it's Facepalm. Like, he's good. Like, I was happy to see him. I'm like, I don't have to explain what's happening, right? That was like the main thing. I was like, okay, I really don't want like some like reg that's gonna like be like, now.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm like, oh, chill. Like, yeah, what's up? Like, and I'm like, yo, we're playing 5, 10, 20. And then he's like, oh, you guys can straddle, but I'm not gonna straddle.
I hate him.
And I was like, what the fuck just happened?
You should just get the plate changed.
Yeah, I could. But
no,
then,
you 100% should.
But the problem is that there was 2 games, right? And there was also a 10-20 game running. So, like, what happens now? Like, there's 2 5-10 games. And I don't know. It's like a weird situation.
Right. Like, does it become a 10-20 must move?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'm like, well, like, what are you talking about, man? Like, and then he, like, pulls me to the side and says, like, hey, like, why would you want to like shorten your edge like by putting the straddle on? And I'm like looking at him like, well, you know, like there is no cap. Like effectively I told him that.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I see. And then he's just like, he goes back and still doesn't do it. Like he kills the straddle. The straddle's dead. So then this kid on my right, I'm between 2 fucking guys that are tilting the shit out of me right now.
Sure.
Like the kid on my right sitting with a big ass pouch, like taking chips out of there every time. He says, I'm not straddling if he's not straddling. And I'm looking at him like, you're stuck $5,000. Why are you killing the straddle?
Why are you trying to make the game smaller?
Yeah, like what are you doing? Like
Yeah.
who has your action? Like, are you going broke?
Yeah.
Like I'm tilted.
Yeah.
So now the 2 VIPs within half an hour rack up and leave.
Of course.
They just left.
They'll find action elsewhere.
It was
The sick thing is you played for 6 hours after that.
Whoa. I have to destroy these 2. Like I have to, now I am so mad. I am literally like telling them like, what did you just do? Like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah.
Like, so tell me what I should do in this environment, because like the VIPs are literally sitting like they're deep. Like,
yeah, I mean it's 6-handed. It's you and 2 VIPs, so that's already half the table that you have in your favor. I just think you get the plaque changed. I know you run the risk of it becoming a must move to the other game, but who cares, right? Like,
I'm gonna tell you. Listen, before we get into all this, but I'm sorry to cut you off, but like, there's some people that are actually good people.
sure.
You know why? There was 2 tables going, and I had a choice between either table, right? And I was gonna go to table 30 because I'm like, oh, I know these guys; they're not good, whatever. And then my man in seat 6 goes, "Hey," and I'm like, "What's up?" Like thinking he's just gonna say something about the Vlogcast or whatever, you know, because you know people like and subscribe to Vlogcasts all the time, as you should right now. If you haven't liked and subscribed, this is the time to do it, or else I'll stop the story right now. All right, since you already liked and subscribed, shared with your friends, I'll continue. He's like, hey, Christian, right? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, yeah, this is good. This is a seat right here. And I'm like thinking like, you don't think I'm a fish. Like, what are you asking me for? He's like, no, seat right here. And I'm like, all right, I know what he means. So I go sit, and it's like, yo, we're playing 5, 10, 20. It's sometimes 40. And I'm like, my man, like, let's go. Like, I know why this is happening. Yeah. And then I look around and I'm like, yeah, I know why this is happening.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, that's what's up. Like the kid, he knows I'm willing to gamble it up with him. Like if it's a good spot, you know?
Yeah.
So he looked out, and then like later on, he's like, I got you, right? And I'm like, I owe you one. And that was it. And like, I owe him one. Yeah. And that was it.
Yeah.
He like pulls me to the side later. He's like, yo, we should have done something. I don't know what.
Yeah, 100%. It's not clear what you should do, but you have to do something.
Tell me what I should do, Berk. You're an OG of the game. You're part of the council.
I mean, the thing is, it's tough, right? You have masks on, you have a divider. It's really hard to fucking rip somebody a new one at the table and just embarrass them, right? Like in the old days, I say the old days, you know, like in the mid 2000s, you would just fleece this person verbally. I mean, you would just undress him in the moment and just be like, you fucking coward. There are 6 people here that want to gamble and you don't. Take your shit to the 1-2 tables, like get out of here. And then like, you know, if that doesn't move the needle at all, like you have the thing is like once you start playing that next stake level higher, you can always change the game.
Yeah.
The game can just always be changed because there's no other game above it. Right. So it's just like adding that third blind or adding an ante or adding anything makes it a unique game where you don't have to worry about a feeder table. It's difficult when you're at 510.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to run a 5-10-20 when there's a 10-20 going.
Right.
Like they can't have 2 separate games that are the same stake.
Exactly.
So yeah, that becomes difficult, but it's almost worth it cutting off your nose to spite your face in that sense, where it's like, fuck these 2.
Yeah.
Right? Like, don't know what's going to happen. The VIPs may get moved to this other table and they're going to reap the benefit from it. But at the end of the day, these 2 won't. And that's all you should care about at that point.
That's true. That's true. I was like, oh man, I was so happy every time they lost a pot. Because they like, then like the VIPs left and now I'm like, you guys are fucked. I'm going to take all your money. Like now I don't even care because now you're my VIPs. Yeah. Like you're dead.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. You already showed you're scared. It's like, I'm going to take the fucking pouch home with me.
Yeah, man. It was something. Like it was really something. But yeah, I wanted to bring it up because to me, I feel like, okay, if I walk into that environment, like literally if I walked into an environment that I'm like, I'm not willing to do what they're willing to do, like just, I would be nice enough to just leave. Like I would just be like, yo, like, okay, fine. Like,
I mean, there are some times where it does more harm than good to kick up the stakes too far.
oh, for sure. I've
So
seen
like,
that happen.
for example, last night we were playing in a private game and we were playing, it started as 25-51, turned into 51-2. No big deal. Everybody's sitting somewhere between 20 and 100K. Game's pretty good.
I was on the 20.
I know. I know. And I was mashing. I had piles. I had like 150K in front of me, right? Mm-hmm. So like it's of no concern to me what stakes we play. I'm comfortable playing double if need be. Kid to my right is buried and continually puts on the 4 and demands that I put on the 8. And then will continually put on the 8 and demands that I put on the 16. And it's like, I don't care about, I don't even care if I'm the only one doing it. Mm-hmm. Right? Like if he were a sport about it and like, it was part of his enjoyable experience, I would just do it. I would just play along, whatever. But there were 2 things occurring. Number 1, he was being I hate to frame it this way because he got buried, right? But like he was being a bad loser, right? Like he was just bemoaning everything. Nothing was ever going to make him happy. So like kicking the stakes up wasn't making him happier. It was just making him lose faster. And that doesn't necessarily make me happy either, because it's like I don't mind seeing pain at the hands of the game playing out.
Yeah.
But like whenever he just gets it to a point where it's so shallow that he's shoving 4 big blinds for another buy-in for like 20K over and over.
It's not fun anymore.
Yeah, it's not fun. He's just rocketing it off. And you know, it is what it is. Like, again, that wasn't my primary concern. My primary concern was just like keeping the integrity of the game intact.
Yeah.
And for some people, like it starts to get a little bit uncomfortable. For others, the big thing was that it hurt the action.
Yes.
There's no more opens.
You can't.
Right? Like now it's just folding to the 800 every time that I have the 16 on.
Right.
And like that's a really good spot for me. And now I'm being the cannibalistic one by being to the left of the guy who's demanding that I put on the 16.
And rocketing.
Yeah. It's just like I'm the one fair catching every single time. And it's like that sucks. So it's like I just kept being the hard ass where I'm just like, no, I'll put on the 4 every time. I don't care. Right? And he's like, do the 8. It's like, nah, man, I'm a nit. Right? And it's like I'm turning myself into the bad guy for the betterment of the game. And I think that that's really critical to be able to recognize those spots rather than being a chiseler saying like, yo, if I put on the 8, this dude to my left is never going to put on the 16. It's almost always going to fold to the 2 or the 4. And I'm just going to be heads up in a spot where we're 30 blinds effective.
Right. Yeah, that's not good. It's interesting because that's happened to me in games where it's just like sometimes the straddle hurts the game. Like there's certain environments where like certain people are like right on the cusp of like being uncomfortable and they'll still gamble with you at this stake, but like if you double the stakes, now they become tight. And it's like, oh man, like the game's actually worse. But like some of the pros are like, oh, put the straddle on because they want to play like they think that is demanding more action. It's actually
I went to Bellagio with you a couple days ago to play 50-100, and you told me that there was a VIP that was playing 5-10-20 with you that was really, really good for the game.
Yeah.
He was in my game and he was just rock tight.
Yeah.
Like only hands he showed were ace queen plus. And you know, he lost like a couple $1,000s. But it was very, very abundantly clear the game was far too big for him.
Yeah, that's what happens. It's just at certain stake levels, people are this. At certain stake levels, people are that.
The risk tolerance remains the same. He's willing to lose 20,000. The difference is at 5, 10, 20, 20,000 goes a hell of a long way.
Yeah.
And you can do a lot of creative things with it.
Yeah.
At 50, 100, sometimes 200, 20,000 is a hand.
That guy was amazing. Like when I play with him, he slow rolled me in like a chop pot. It was like a wild hand where like I check shove the flop on king 9-7 2 clubs, and then he's like, I call. Like he snapped, and then he's like, you must have a really really good hand. And I'm like, I don't. I have one pair. He's like, I'm like, what does mean? I'm like, oh god. He's like, I'm like, twice or once? He's like, I don't care. I was like, I don't care, but I'll do whatever you want. He's like, oh no, just once. And I'm like, oh fuck. He has like a set. Like,
Yeah.
He's like, I said one pair. He's like, once.
Yeah.
And then he goes like, break. I'm like, ace king.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I have that hand. And I'm like, oh, this guy's funny, man. This guy's awesome. But yeah, man, like these things, these environment things, like, I bring it up because like, okay, the online environment, like GG's trying to try things to maintain the environment, right? Olivier is making these statements, like trying to say like, okay, this is what the environment should look like. And now that I've gotten into like some private games, like whatever, like for me, I've learned like, okay, like this is the money I brought, like whatever. Like yesterday I had $40,000, right? And I was like, I could probably borrow more if I need it. Like, but right now this 40,000 is in play in whatever way that this environment is telling me to do it.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'm not going to like not do something,
Yeah.
To try to like eke it out. Like
They had the 32 on at one point.
they had the 64 on Berkey. I was lucky that I was in the 200. Okay.
Yeah.
Like I was in the 200. I was like, thank God I'm in the 200 because I would have had to put the.
I'm always the fucking 64 in that spot. I'm always the 64.
I was like, I'm in the 200. There is a God. Because I mean, I would have done it if I was in like the 60. Actually, no. You know what? They respected me. You know why? Because when it got to the 32, the dude was being hesitant, and I said, "I'll give you half."
Okay.
And they were like, "Oh, the kid got some balls, huh?" And I was like, "I'm Berkey's friend."
We hate money here.
Yeah. And then they threw the 32, and then Lynn put the 64, and then they didn't make me have to pay half.
Oh, that's nice.
I was like, all right, cool. I'm glad I said it though. I would have paid it, but like I would have been like, ah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 64 went on. That was literally the biggest like hand of poker I've ever seen in my life. Like,
Yeah.
So how in all your years, right? Like you're known to be like good for the game and like good to have in the game. You're like one of the only pros that actually gets invited to like games, right? When you see these type of things, like do you agree with Olivier that it's more of a it's just a mindset? Like how would you?
For some, I think for most though, they're just chiselers, right? Like he's right whenever you're shot taking.
Yeah.
But like most people's lives are just shot takes.
Ah, I see.
And they just turn themselves into chiselers, right? Like in all the years in Ivy's room, we saw it 100 times where a 510, 1020 reg, 1020, 2550 reg finally got the green light
To
come in and take a seat.
Yeah.
And, he sold action to 25 of his friends and they're all pumped and they're all railing it.
Yeah.
And like, he just treats it the way he treats every other single spot. And he's just trying to chisel every piece of EV. And, especially like when you're on a short roll, that doesn't work. It doesn't work for a few reasons. Number one, you upset the environment that you're in.
Yes.
So people are very aware that you're a chiseler very quickly. And it puts unguarded people on guard, right? Like you never want the businessman to be aware of the fact that you are looking to carve out every single cent that you possibly can. Even though when you enter a poker game, the default mindset is that's the case, right? But that's not the case when you go behind the glass doors. The default mindset is that it's going to be a give and take and an exchange of, I guess, like gamble in a sense. and the person who's best at navigating that landmine is going to be the one who benefits the most, right? That's why JRB is JRB.
JRB's the god.
Yeah, it's just like, he understands how to navigate the exchange of EV in a sense where it's like, I'll give you a jingle here in order to ensure that you remain happy and keep losing your couple $100 an hour.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
I was in a pot with a person yesterday that owns a lot of crypto, and my man likes to gamble. He likes to gamble. He just wants to see the 5 cards.
Yeah.
And win.
I
like
respect that.
whatever,
Sure.
right? But he was losing a lot, and I really like the guy. Like, he's just like really good, right? And I think he was like on one of his last bullets, like probably his last bullet, whatever. And I get aces, right? And he opens, and I'm like, I look down, I'm like, Blade. I'm like, oh boy. And I look at his stack, and I'm like, okay, like, so I 3-bet him really big. This guy's not gonna fold, right?
Yeah.
And he calls, and I'm like, I'm gonna give you an option. We could check it down so you can see all your 5, or we can play the pot. It's your call. And he's like, yeah, check it down. And I show him aces, and he's like, I like you. he's like, I like you. Then we see all 5, and he misses, and everything. He's like, no one's ever done that for me. And I'm like, no one's ever done it for me either.
Yeah, that's the big thing is that like, no one goes the cooperative route, right? It's very rare that somebody in this sort of ecosystem views the game through a long-term lens where it's like, I'm going to be willing to stick my neck out and do something that harms my short-term EV, and also something that I can't guarantee the favor will ever be returned for me on, right? But in doing that, you show to the collective that this isn't just a cannibalistic game where we're trying to eke out every single cent of EV possible. Because if you have a skill edge, you're already recouping your unfair share, right? Especially if it's a major skill edge. And now all of a sudden, if you do have that skill edge, but you're offering a little bit of a kickback to those that you hold over, you suddenly find yourself in these environments more frequently, right?
Yeah.
You're just allowed to be a part of the boys club in a situation where like they're shutting out the children of the sim.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? And it's just like, we don't want them because they have no interest in gambling with us. They only have interest in fleecing us.
Yeah.
And that feels bad. It feels bad in the moment. You know what I mean? It feels like so predatory in the moment. And it's nothing against people who have worked really hard to know what the absolute correct play is in every single situation.
Yeah, I mean, I want to know the correct play too. Like we all do. Like
it's just realizing that like once you know what the correct play is, and knowing that you can deviate a little bit left or right of center and not sacrifice that much, but keep somebody a lot happier, you just do it.
Yeah.
I talk about this a lot. Like there were many people who came through Ivy's room that were good for the game, in my opinion. Guys I loved playing with. Marcus is one of my favorite humans. Poker aside, he's like literally one of my favorite humans to even speak to. But also he just battles in game, right? He sits super deep. He puts you to tough decisions. But like, you have businessmen in there like Bob Bright, like, I'm trying to think of like some of the older guys who came through, they're used to playing friendly poker. And when I say friendly, I don't mean that no one gets hurt. I mean that, there's a certain structure to betting.
Yeah.
And you don't see 3x overbets and shit of that nature, right? So it's like, when you find yourself in a situation and you're Marcus and you have the decision between betting full pot versus Bob Bright on the river, knowing that you're getting max value and that he's going to call, or having the option to bet 3x pot because it's the correct play and he calls at the exact same frequency, meaning you earn more money.
Right.
But you alienate him in the process, choose full pot all time. Every single time. Choose 80% over 125. If you know that you're still getting called at the same frequency, you're only losing a little bit of money in the short run, but he's very content paying off a better hand for 80% as opposed to having the distaste in his mouth, feeling like he was just pantsed whenever you bet 125.
It's true. It's 100. That's straight facts. I didn't overbet at all yesterday until we got 3-handed with 2 regs, and I'm like, all right, let's go.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, check raise, overbet.
Yeah, you just bet.
I'm like, all right, let's do it. Yeah, man, and it's an interesting topic because it's one that I think intrigues people. Where it's like, what happens in these games?
Yeah.
Like what is going on? Why don't I get invited? Why does Berkey get in? It's like
there are like so many different languages being spoken at the same time, right? There's the conversion of math to actual language and then the implementation thereof. There's the exchange of pain that's taking place and trying to mitigate that, where you're both a gracious loser and a tolerable winner, right? And maintaining, I'm not saying maintaining even keelness. People don't want that either, right? Like, you know, I'm sure if you ever like ask JRB or whatever, they'll say like, you know, Berkey's a really good loser. But I'm a good loser in the sense that I let you torture me a little bit when I'm down, right? I let it be known that I'm fucking getting crushed.
Yeah.
And it's not in a belly aching kind of way. It's just in a way where you get to enjoy the fruits of your labor at that point at my own expense. And I can tolerate that, right? It's like I can make myself the butt of the joke when I'm stuck more money than I'm actually physically worth.
No,
right?
I understand.
And there's a little bit of empathy that gets exchanged there. And like, you know, you get into the good graces of other people by being able to speak to them on a language that they can understand, because they've all been there.
Yeah.
They've all been buried. They've all had case money at some point in some venture in life. Maybe not at the poker table, but in some business venture or something else. And like, you know, especially like for most of the guys I was playing with are older than me, right? So they're beyond peers. They're guys that in a lot of ways in a business world I look up to. So it's like whenever they can see you remaining somewhat poised and you know, self-deprecating and maintaining your wit about you whenever everything's going to shit, and then in turn showing a little bit of grace when everything is going your way, and you know you're achieving expectation or there beyond, right? There's a you know, a level of respect that gets exchanged there.
Yeah.
That feels really good in the sense that you know that you belong now, right? Like you're never going to lose that seat because of the things that you do or don't offer to the game, right? You're only ever going to lose that seat because there are more VIPs than there are you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, yesterday it was a really unique situation. Like I got cooled off a lot, right? And it was like, damn, this sucks, like whatever. But like I lost kings versus aces against some guy, and then like we were still playing four-handed, and the kid on my right, who's like, he's a pro, but like probably not like top tier pro. And he's like, hey, I don't want to play anymore. Like, you guys are like too solid. Well, first he said, that guy's a super nit. And like, and you guys are like just pretty solid, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, cool. Like, whatever. It's all good.
Man, I remember your four-handed, and I honestly can't pick out which one was the super nit because I think it could be all three.
I'm with you, man. I understand. But then like he saw me lose the kings versus aces, and like it was a big pot. It was like $60K. And like I gave the kid a pound, and I'm like, yo, it's all good. Like, nice hand. Like, I'll see you at the Bellagio, whatever.
Yeah.
And then like he leaves, whatever, comes back, and he's like, yo, like that was really cool. Like you took it well. Like and you know, you're just like having fun right now. Like, and I'm like, yeah, man. Like whatever, it's all good. Like it's another hand of the day. Like meanwhile, I'm fucking like, oh my god, like why not? Why today? like why not at like 510? Like
right.
Or 1500? That's fine.
Yeah.
It's like $60K. Like why now?
Yeah,
like,
right.
Whatever. But yeah, I mean, you take it well. Like, of course it hurts, but like it's part of the, like we all know what we signed up for. Like I knew in there, like it can happen, right? But I did want to talk about one thing, right? Like a lot of like me, I would consider myself like me, like I'm not part of the scene, right? Like I'm just like trying to get in the scene. And one of the things like I've learned like from you, from like some of the other people, like they're kind of like guiding me through the process of like, you know, being not the child of the sim, right? One of the posts I made, right? And one of the reasons I was like not even like allowed at first in like these kind of games, or like specifically this game, was because one time, and I made this tweet, I told the story. I was in DC.
You left a pretty key part of the story out.
What?
Go on.
No, that was in a different tournament.
Oh, okay.
Oh, maybe it was the same. No, it was the same tournament. You're right.
Yeah.
But that was funny. I was pissed. But okay, so I was in DC. We were playing. It was a $2,700 tournament. And the field was really good. Like it was a really good field. It was the first event they ever ran there, MGM National Harbor. And we're nearing the bubble, right? So I have my friend at the time, friend/coach, whatever, who's teaching me tournaments. He's like, oh, when you get to the bubble, like you have to tank unless you have all the chips. So I'm like looking at the clock, and I'm like, okay, like we're nearing the bubble, like we're like 1% out, right? And I just start banking like from 1% out, which means
I
like
killed you.
Means that's like it could be like 10 people.
Bro,
I
I'd
don't know.
had the floor standing over your fucking shoulder.
So like I'm literally banking 30.
Yeah. Alex Keating did this to me in the main event. 150 people out of the money.
Yeah.
It was
crazy.
5 hours.
That's insane.
And he got the whole table to collude with him. It was literally me, him, and 7 Recs. And he got the other 7 Recs to agree that we would all stall until we got into the money.
That's insane.
I was losing. Obviously, I had all the fucking chips.
Yeah, of course.
I was losing my goddamn mind. I was so angry. It's the year he went deep.
See, the guy's a sim. The guy's a fucking sim. All right, so I start like banking hard, right? Because for me, it's like I don't play tournaments that much.
Yeah,
it's a big turn for me. 2,700 at the time is a big buy-in. Like like my average buy-in was like 1,600. So this is almost double my buy-in. So now I'm like, okay, 2,700, like pretty soft field. I would like to cash the tournament. Like it would be nice, right? I'm in DC. I'm not even like in my home field. Like I traveled here, right?
yeah.
So whatever. And then I'm like, okay, cool. Like, and I start banking, thinking that's like, I'm a child of the sim. Like I'm supposed to be banking, right? Like that's what like the pros do, and I am a pro,
Sure.
right? Look at my cards, just like Jack Deuce off, just like.
Oh God, I would have murdered.
Look at all the stacks.
I would have murdered you.
Look at all the stacks.
How can you do this every hand?
Then somebody raises, it's my big blind. I have to think.
Right.
It's like, and then okay, so obviously this is like happening, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I'm obviously tanking. Like it's a thing. Like it's what it's. I'm not proud to say it now, but like that's what I was told to do. That's literally like I watched a fucking upswing video where what was the guy's name? The Indian kid.
Oh,
Pertush.
Pertush, yeah.
Pertush Badiga literally says it in the video. Like, you're losing EV if you don't tank. Like, it's how you're supposed to do it. I was surprised he said it in the video. And then I was like, okay, so everyone's doing it, right? Like, I'm supposed to do this. Like, I'm a pro. So I start tanking. And then, like, 2 other people on the table are like, yo, like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I'm just thinking, right? All right. So they start getting annoyed and like, whatever. Obviously the bubble bursts and I start playing faster. And like, they're just still pissed. It's like, bro, like, what the fuck? Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is like, nobody's doing this and you're doing this, right? Whatever. So I cash. I'm personally happy, right? About the situation, right? My man, like, that, like, I still owe him an apology today. Like, he's like, can you play faster? And I snap. I just snap. Like, I'm from DR. Like, don't talk to me, bro. I'm from the hood. If you say something, you gotta be ready. You gotta be ready for the clap back. Like, I grew up underground New York. Like, if you're not ready for the clap back, you just stay shut. So he's like, can you play faster? And I'm like, can you play better? Like, quick with it. And he, like, the table was like, oh. But I'm sure he didn't like it. I mean, I wouldn't have liked it.
No,
I mean,
he hates your guts.
Yeah, he probably hates my guts. But, I will officially, if you listen to this ever, maybe you don't listen, maybe you do. Maybe you secretly like me and like you just tell yourself you don't like me. But this is an official apology to that person. If you listen to this, I am truly sorry for saying that person back there is a piece of shit. Like, he should never tag. He should never say that. And honestly, I would have given that motherfucker a penalty, 3 penalties. I might have DQ'd that fucking kid. You know? That's crazy. So yeah, I got you.
The live environment is very cooperative in that sense. And I mean, I guess maybe you could say that the online environment is as well. Just the exact opposite occurs. Like, everybody understands you're supposed to bank, so they all do.
Right.
And they cooperate in that sort of way. In the live environment, it's kind of similar in the sense that it's a social game, more so than an EV derived game.
Yes.
So they cooperate and say, like, hey, you're a bad actor. Mm-hmm. You're slowing down the pace of the game. You're ruining the structure of the tournament. The experience is shitty. I'm not seeing any hands. I don't care if you banking is making me money. That's not what I'm here for necessarily, right? Like, no one cares about a min cash. There's this arrogance amongst live pros specifically where it's like min cashing's for pussies. Mm-hmm. It's about the top prize. Yeah. And the only way we're going to get to that top prize is accumulating in times when we can accumulate. And the bubble is one of them, especially if you're a risk taker.
Yeah, it was one of those things where it's like I went back and looked at the hidden mob and it was like I got like 13th. I'm like, good. You got punished.
Yeah.
Like you got punished. 13th. That's not shit. That's almost there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I look back at it. I'm like, yeah, I mean, so to finalize the story, years go by, right? And this private game comes up, whatever. And it's like, no, I don't like playing with that kid. He plays slow. And then I'm like, when did that happen? And then like, I was like, who was it? Whatever. And then like, you said like who it was. And I was like, yeah, that happened. Yeah. And like, that really happened. Like, yeah. And you're like, yeah, so you're not allowed to play. And I was like, yeah, I agree. like I agree. I shouldn't be allowed to play. Like, that's fucked up.
Yeah,
like I'll find the way to make it right. But like for now, I completely agree. That's cool.
Yeah.
You know? But the moral of the story is that like, and I spoke to this with like, you know, a couple people. It's like, and like they told me, it's like literally everything you do at the table, like
conveys information.
Yeah, and pretty much. That's a good one. That's a good one. It conveys information.
You can't be playing all loosey-goosey eating a sandwich.
Yeah, but like effectively, like don't take don't think like, oh, like this thing that you're doing right now like doesn't matter. Like it matters because like it could come back.
That's the big difference between live and online. You're judged by every single second that you're sitting at the table. Not necessarily the hands that you play, not necessarily everything else. You're judged by literally every action that you take. And, you know, conversely, a lot happens in the opposite online where all you have to judge are the mechanics. So, you know, there are a lot of people who think I'm just getting lambasted online because mechanically I'm not in accordance to the sim. Yeah. Right? But like, I think that there's a hard line in the sand to draw that people don't really recognize. And that is the major benefit to playing as close to a GTO approximated style as possible is that you can mass multi-table and you can put in loads of volume, right? So that's the biggest reason to want a protected strategy is so that you don't have to worry about deviating, right? You never have to deal with any sort of alterations to your strategy. You just try to execute to the best of your absolute ability and hope that the pool tendencies aren't exploiting you in any sort of capacity. And then you just take that edge, whatever it may be, one big blind per 100 or 10, whatever, and you try to extrapolate it out now over tens of thousands or millions of hands.
Yes.
That's not how I play poker, and that's not how I've learned poker, right? I've been destroying online WSOP pool, and mainly it's because I'm one-tabling high stakes, which is directly paralleled to live. So it's like there are a lot of situations where I choose a suboptimal size because I know my opposition. I know that he'll pay more frequently versus this size and bluff more frequently versus that size. I know that like he'll lose value versus a certain size, right? There was a specific hand where I had top pair, top kicker in a 3-bet pot where Shea Theodore river 2-pair with 5-4. And it was a run out where I could have, or I should have, I guess, obviously selected the largest size on the river. I can't remember what the SPR was. Yeah. But it was somewhere between 1 and 2. So, my river sizing should have been somewhere between pot and a shove. Yes. But I chose like 60% pot. And the reason being was that I understand the way, or at least my experience with him, both live and online, I have a pretty good comprehension of how he thinks himself through these spots. Through the tree. Right. And he's just going to arrive at river with a 0 bluffing frequency versus my size. And his bluff catchers, in my opinion, aren't going to be nearly as wide as they should be. So it's like when I have top pair, top kick, I think I'm getting bluff caught by like top pair plus. And I don't think that he's going to find like hero calls with like middle pairs that have found their way to the river. And it so happened that he rivered 2-pair and didn't shove. And that's another byproduct of choosing this size.
It's interesting when he doesn't shove 2-pair. That means when he lands on the... So this is a really interesting little game, right? Let's run through this game. So this is a pretty kind of famous-ish hand now. So if villain on river, like we don't really even have to recount the hand, but if villain on river lands with 2-pair and he doesn't shove, that means his bluff catchers are so strong on the river... generally, that when you do overbet, he can actually start folding some hands. Right. Which makes your overbet a little bit...
Which is what I was accounting for.
Makes your overbet a little bit less good, maybe potentially even bad, when he starts folding and then retains bluff catchers that are actually stronger.
Right. And I can almost certainly fold with like 100% execution versus a shove. Yes. Despite being laid a good price, because if he's not shoving 2-pair, it's now a set plus.
Right.
And the wheel came in through the river, I believe on a 2-tone board. So it's like he's going to have 1 or 2 combinations
It's
of like
interesting.
nuts.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, once you see him not shove 2-pair, it becomes a little bit of a game where it's like, well, then his bluff catchers are pretty strong because like he can start folding some.
And this is what exploiting is, right? It's knowing what the baseline is, knowing what the betting matrice of baseline is, right? It's I think I went like third pot 75%, and then it's gonna be like 125 plus on the river. No, understanding that betting matrice, and then just recognizing what the response is from an opponent's range that you're rather intimate with, right? And it's like, if I understand what the funneling mechanism of that range is, flop, turn, and river, now all of a sudden betting river at all becomes thin. And, I'm near top, so I still have a clear bet, but I have to size down now to try to capture more hands and lay a better price to a range that maybe is not as wide as it should be, given the line work through which we got here.
So talk to me now. One of the things I text you, like, I've been doing these like fucking marathon sessions every day at Bellagio. And I'm like, listen, I get it. Okay. I run this. And you know why? It's because I know now that clairvoyance is worth everything. Like, sure. I know I'm like superheroing everything. Like, it's like I'll fold ace king pre-flop, and then I'll call you with 3rd pair.
It's because you're a social genius.
That's actually, I've become that. I've noticed that is actually a fact.
Yo, we have so many clothing lines available to us.
I'm telling you, man.
Child of the Sim. Social
Sim,
genius.
Tap. People are waiting for tap.
Tap's gonna be nice.
Tap. Social genius and Child of the Sim.
Yeah,
that's the next 3.
Yeah,
they got 3. But if you haven't gotten one, you should buy our new merch. We got the Alpha Rec merch, designed by yours. You're a fucking designer.
That's weird. I just learned how to use Photoshop like a year ago.
Matt Berkey.
It's part of being left-handed, man.
Matt Berkey. From France. Mock.
It wasn't all my doing. We have a great intern, Robert, who kind of took my rudimentary design, cleaned it up, made it look a lot better, threw it in a spade. Always smart to throw it in a spade. This just makes things clean.
Mock Jacob. Matt Berkey.
Sure.
All right. So then, okay. So crazy shit. It was wild. And there's people that judge you. Like, one of the Andrew Brokus made a quick tweet back at me and said, like, because I tweeted, I was like, I went to the bathroom, came back, and I saw I missed my straddle, so I threw it in the middle. Like, I just threw it in the ante.
Yeah.
And no one said anything, and everyone was like, oh shit, nice, thanks, whatever. Like, whatever. And he's like, oh, I judge people like heavily on this. Like, like it's one of those things. It's like, yeah, people are watching you,
Yeah.
like whatever. Anyway, off the topic. Oh, we're on
Clairvoyance.
The fucking Matt Berkey fucking threw me off. So clairvoyance, right? That's my biggest question that I texted you, right? Was how much is clairvoyance worth? And I've been asking this to like Chewy, and because it was a thing that came up with Landon a lot.
Yeah.
It's like he doesn't have clairvoyance. Like,
Right.
he doesn't work under that. He's
Yeah.
a child of the sim right now.
Right.
So what is clairvoyance, and why is it like, what is it? Like, what is it tangibly worth?
So clairvoyance in the functionality of the poker realm is having relatively high confidence on imperfect information. So it's being able to effectively, see into the unknown, if you will, right? Those 2 hole cards.
Yeah.
It's being able to see with relative confidence what that range actually breaks down to. And obviously it's worth everything. It's the reason why poker is challenging, and the reason why it's so complex and so difficult to solve is because it's a game of imperfect information.
Yes.
If you make it perfect, it becomes more solvable than chess, right? If we just turn everybody's cards face up,
Right.
the tree reduces to near 0.
Yeah, it's easy.
Or, I mean, that's exaggerated,
but it's easy, way easier.
for sure.
Yeah.
It's very much a simplified version if cards are just face up and information becomes perfect. So that is the major difference. Like, people want to compare poker and chess all the time. One is very wicked and one is very kind. Chess is a complete board.
That's how we did there, by the way.
Huh?
That's how we did there with the little wicked and kind. I know what you're talking about.
I just finished Range. It's a great book. But yeah, chess is a very cooperative environment in that regards, right? It's very kind. There's a complete board, so there's a finite endpoint. and we're getting better and better at reverse engineering the pathways towards it. There's been I don't know how many iterations of Stockfish at this point, and now Alpha Zero has blown all of those out of the water. So the sims just keep getting better, and that'll happen in poker too.
Yeah,
but poker is far more chaotic. It's more wicked, right? There's a multiplayer facet to it that means that the variables are always variable in nature. You can never pin them down to a constant.
Yes.
Right? So the difference is, like, if you start with chess and you have an opening move and an opening counter, right? That truncates the tree already tremendously. But if you have an under the gun open and then
straddle,
forget all that. Don't complicate it, right?
Okay.
You just have an under the gun open with, let's say, a static range, like a range that we are confident in or clairvoyant in. And then we have an action taken by under the gun 2 while there are still 6 people left to act. That's hard to replicate because that unique environment, right? Like in a simulated world, we can nail it down.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be Poker Snowy 1 in seat 1, Poker Snowy 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right?
Right.
But in real world applications, it's going to be Uncle Joe under the gun 1 this time.
Matt Berkey under
Right.
2.
And then the next time it's going to be Chin.
Yeah.
And, it's going to be Uncle Joe who opened. And like just the interchanging of all of the potential options makes the variable nature of the game impossible to pin down.
Yeah.
And that alone makes it, very, very wicked in attempting to find these vacuum solves. And, that's been the big discussion with us and Landon as of late, now that he's gotten a little live experience at reasonably high stakes. It's like the problem is the second that you leave the vacuum, the second you leave the lab, assumptions go haywire because he's still human. He still looks at seat 2 and goes, this guy's fucking old, man. He just doesn't have the range that the Munker solve would have here.
Right.
And it's like, and not only does he not have that range, but it's not even close, and I don't know how to estimate it.
Yeah.
So at that point, clairvoyance becomes worth everything. And I asked him point blank, I go, would you exchange every bit of strategic knowledge you have for utter clairvoyance over the field? And he said, of course. And obviously you would, right? Like, you don't need that complex of a strategy if you have perfect information on each opponent.
Yeah. One of the things is, like, I've made friends with a lot of, like, I would say probably the 2 best players at 510 Bellagio are like friends with me.
Yeah.
And I know what they're doing.
Sure.
Okay. Like, don't try to, you motherfuckers, you think I don't know? I know. Okay. Like, I know you guys are trying to be friends, so I don't 3-bet you. Like, it's still coming. The 3 of us got to fly. Okay. But anyway, they're actually like pretty nice. And then they show up every day, 5 a.m. And I'm like, you guys are sick.
Yeah.
Like, 5 a.m. and they play, whatever. The shout out to Adam and Sunrise, whatever. And they're like, they text me, they're like, you're so out of line. How do you win? Like, and I'm like, I just know. Like, I literally just say, like, I just know. Like, I just know I could get away with this. And like,
it's not even knowing, it's giving yourself the opportunity, right? The big thing about live poker and quite frankly, the WSOP online pool, as I've noticed it so far, is that there's a lot of money being left on the table. And if you abide by some strict guideline of this is what the sim says I have to do in this particular instance, or these are at least the guidelines that I'm supposed to utilize in this instance, and I don't want to color too far outside the lines. If you abide by that, what happens is you just go heads up versus the VIP over and over and over and over and over.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
I just open and flat the button or whatever, and then like, for me, it's one of those things where I was like, I kind of feel like, at least I hope that like I leave the pool soon, right? Like up, right?
Yeah.
So I tell them, I'm like, I'm not going to get out of line versus you. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not out of line. Like, against you, I don't have the hands that you think I have against him.
Right.
Like I have good hands. Like, I'm not going to just like hit you with the 7-4 suited flat. Like, I'm not going to from the button.
Right.
Because like, I think I can like win.
Right.
Not even the 7-5 suit. I'm just going to fold. Like, and they're like, yeah, I mean, but like, how do you, like, what ranges do you play? And I'm like what, sorry, the exact thing is like, what, like actual, like, range converter things were you using? I'm like, listen, man, like, I'm not on that. Like,
right.
Like, I've seen them, I've skimmed them, but I'm not on the, like, oh, this is my hand here. Like, I know what I should open at 200 big blinds. I know like how to defend versus 3-bet. Like, but I'm not gonna like be running ranges versus like this person that just came from the club.
Right.
Like, so whatever. All right. So clairvoyance is the thing. It's why I think I make money, because I feel like clairvoyance and social genius is like the same.
Well, on some level it is, because what's happening is you're circumventing the data, right? There's no way to collect mass data live, but there is a way to get a feel for it. Like, we're very good at that as human beings. We're very good at stereotyping. We're very good at exchanging subtle, subconscious information with one another that will shape our beliefs and our biases moving forward. Now, the level of accuracy on there is debatable, right? You'll never have 100% clairvoyance over any spot.
Of course not.
But there are a lot of spots where you can have like 90% certainty.
Yeah.
You know, there are situations to fold kings pre-live because you can be 90% certain that old man Joe just only fucking has aces here.
Yeah.
And if 10% of the time he shows up with another hand, you're willing to just
give
live
it
with it.
Give it
Yeah.
up. Yeah.
It's like, you understand there's a margin of error here, but it's not so great that it's worth you stacking off a big number in a spot where this guy's never 5-bet a day in his life.
Yeah, that's facts.
So it's like, yeah. So understanding, like, this is what Nick does with mass pool data, or mass pool data analysis online, right? Is he's able to get clairvoyance over the pool in areas that they make pretty egregious errors, right? We do that live all the time. We just do it without the clarification of seeing the data.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But we can still do it with a layer of confidence. Nick can maybe do it with like a 99% of certainty, right?
And he gets to do it a lot. So it's
Right.
just like he just clicks a button. Even
Yeah.
when it's all, even though wrong.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like,
If he's in the 1 to 2% margin of error, it's like, so what? It doesn't matter. You'll get that spot a million times over and it'll be right.
even if he's right 80%,
Right.
it doesn't matter. Like, he just like repeats it infinite times because he's online.
Yeah.
So, you know,
but
so-
like for us, it's like 70% degree of confidence is really fucking high.
Yeah, very high.
You know, it's like that's the big reason why there are children of the sim. The whole reason that people are buying into, I shouldn't say buying into as if like it's some made up notion, but like, you know, game theory has always been a thing. Poker has always lent itself to game theory, but game theory isn't as clean as people would like to believe it to be in this environment, right? There's a lot of natural tweaking that takes place, same as game theory applied to economics, which was its original source, right? The big thing that the overlording thing of economics that game theory struggles with is behavioral economics.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing live, right? Specifically live. We're dealing with behavioral economics in a sense.
Yeah, that's facts.
So like we have to tweak the game theory model in a way that deals for irrational actors. Because the first line of game theory study is two rational actors developing strategies that converge on Nash equilibrium, right?
Yes.
Well, the second you enter an irrational actor, everything changes. You know, the sim doesn't necessarily break, but it bends.
Yeah.
And we take that for granted as a collection, right? So the whole purpose of going down that path and wanting to pursue that path is simple confidence. It increases your confidence interval every time you find yourself in a spot. You say, I've seen a sim on this, and I know that I'm supposed to bet 75% on this texture from this formation with this hand range. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to execute, and I'm going to live with the results. And it's easy to sleep at night that way, right?
Yeah, these children like to sleep tight. You know, they like the little blanket.
Yeah, tucked
They
in.
like tucked in little milk.
A little nightcap.
Yeah, not a nightcap. They get their fucking chocolate milk. Chocolate milk. Mommy texts them like, "You sleeping good, baby? You call right? You made the right play? That's Pio said it was good."
I sleep like a baby. I just don't fold.
I know. I fucking saw you play 150K pot with fucking one pair.
It was good.
And then I yelled like, "You guys are bluffing Berkey. You crazy as hell, but you make a set, you just get paid everything. Just wait. Just fucking wait. Just wait."
It's hard to wait.
Person jumped out their seat like, "Do you just fold? Can you just fold?" And you're like, "Nah."
No.
I'm like, this kid's crazy. This fucking alpha reg. Try to bluff an alpha reg. Bluff the children.
Yeah.
All right. I hope you all enjoyed this episode. This was a pretty wild episode. We had a lot of this is like tales of the tape. Like, no, not tales of the tape. Like tales of, well,
Tales from the Crypt.
yeah, just tales.
Sure.
We'll call this episode Tales. No, but I like this episode. This was one of those where like they get a little bit of like a little peek behind the glass, you know, like I don't know. It's fun. It's one of those where it's like there was a lot of strategy. But there was also a lot of stories, you know. JRB tells the best stories, man. I'll pay any rake to play with JRB. If JRB wants to play like, what was the rake they charging on GG now? Infinite, like whatever, like uncapped rake. I'll play uncapped rake to play with JRB. Not because I think JRB is not a fish, but like his stories are worth like, and he has like all the stories, man.
I love JRB. He's a phenomenal storyteller. But if I'm in the room and he's telling a fucking story, I can promise you it's an indirect needle at me. I can promise you. The first fucking story he tells last night.
Yes, that's true.
The first story he tells is about the night where he beat me, or Aces versus Kings, out of a $500,000. I tuck my tail, walk out, bump into the chairman on my way, and then he plays for 3 days straight, running it up to $5 million.
Yes.
Could have been me. That's how the story always ends. Could have just as easily been you, Matt.
That's true.
Could have just as easily been you.
Literally, he looks at me. He's like, oh yeah, like I like Berkey, whatever. And he's like, the condo I live in now is because of Berkey. I'm like, oh, I know this story. Yeah. And then he proceeds to tell the story. And he's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, then now I have a Bentley. It's amazing. Just like, he's like, yeah, I mean, my entire life is done. Like, he just everything, he just keeps adding on to it. Like, and he's like saying it like just loud enough.
Yeah,
where,
no,
like,
I know.
You know?
I know.
Like, man, for those of you that know the story, like that's a classic. All right, I hope you all enjoyed this episode number 13, season number 2. If you haven't liked and subscribed, come on, man, where are you gonna get these fucking stories? This is the realest fucking podcast in all of poker. Shout out to all the other podcasts out there, like, you know, Auntie Chardonnay, she's from the show. With that said,
this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it, man. I know it, I know.